why are youth critical for innovation in the food system? I'm sure you have a really unique and full perspective on this, so we're
Yeah.
excited to hear what you think.
Well, it's really interesting because you are hearing more and more organizations talking about the importance of youth. And there is a reason for that. One is the fact that, youth are representing the largest demographic alive. And, if you look at certain regions of the world, I mean, it's predominantly young people. And so it is really important to involve youth in the topics that their future is at stake, and so this of course is a very strong reason that we need to involve youth. But I actually have another answer to this, which is what drives me at Thought for Food. I actually believe it would be at our peril and not to include youth, and that it's actually makes really strong strategic sense to invite today's young people because they represent unprecedented innovation power. And this is something that I've come to believe and understand and find evidence for in the work that I do at Thought for Food. But if you look at the attitudes and attributes that drive today's young people, you see that this is not only the largest demographic alive, but also the most socially conscious, well educated, digitally savvy, and globally connected generations that the world has ever seen. And those, when we look at big, systemic, complex global challenges, and you look at the challenges facing agriculture, which is the least digitized industry sector, and you then couple that with what attributes today's young people bring, and you're like, wow, actually, here they come ready to be the people that we need to think about these problems in new ways and to develop the solutions that we need, in the ways that they know best. So that for me is the reason that we need to focus on young people. I mean, one is it's the right thing to do, and two is it's the smart thing to do.
Can you share a little bit more, like digging into how Thought for Food fits into this? For the past 8 years, you've worked with tens of thousands of millennial and Gen Z innovators in every part of the world. What's your approach? How are they really kind of digging into the need for innovation when we think about the food system?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't set out with this mission to build a global movement of young people to shake up food and ag, but it happened because together with some friends, we developed a program that was very authentic to the ways of working and these attitudes, that young people represent. So, um, really what I have to say motivated me personally was I have always been extremely interested in agriculture. I grew up on a farm. I dedicated my studies to actually wanting to do something really important for the world. And I knew that, agriculture was going to be the place that I did it. But then I actually, when I graduated from graduate school, looked around at all of my really smart, creative friends, and they were all moving into tech. And I actually just got jealous. I was like, I want you guys to come work with me and let's do something really cool. Let's feed the planet. And at this time, this was over a decade ago, agriculture was not at anywhere near the interesting sector that it is today. It was kind of seen in the life sciences industry as the, divestment of all the big companies. It was not looked at really strongly by investors in the VC world. And so it was how do we get the world, and particularly talents who bring creative mindsets and passion, excited about this space? So with that in mind, some friends and I came up with the concept of Thought for Food, which was we're going to do a startup competition like they do in Silicon Valley. We're going to bring energy. We're going to make this a rock concert festival, mashup of innovation and art and creativity. And it was a big experiment, but it worked. And I knew we were onto something when I organized our first event, which happened to be in Berlin because we were just piloting it in Europe. And there were these young people who hitchhiked to get there. They came overnight just because they wanted to be part of this crazy experiment. And then just chatting with people and seeing the collaborations that were coming to be and this authentic culture that was starting to emerge. I was like, this is actually, we're onto something here. Let's continue to build this and test this and yeah, really forge a path. And that was kind of a really fun part of TFF is there wasn't a blueprint. There wasn't a company telling me what to do. It was really let's just do this and see what happens. And just like any movement, it took on a life of its own. And now here I am a decade later, and we've been riding that rising tide of investment and interest that's coming in the sector. But I like to think we've actually also played a role in creating that tidal wave, and that's really exciting.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. I mean, I think you can take you're very humble, but I think you can take a little bit of credit for that. And even, in Apeel's early days, a lot of the scientists and engineers who started out here were not from the food industry, right? Like they probably would have gone into totally different fields and just for whatever reason and like serendipitously decided to focus on these problems that become very personal because everyone eats and
Everyone eats.
yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like the ultimate connector. And actually, what's so exciting is the possibilities for innovation are just so strong. There's a problem to be solved everywhere you look, and so it really can attract all kinds of diverse thinkers into this space, which is what I love about this space.
It's awesome. As soon as you start peeling back, we eat every day, but we don't necessarily know where our food comes from or anything about the food system. And you peel it back, and it's just, for
Mhm.
lack of a better term, like so ripe for innovation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love all the ag terms like we peel back and it's right for reinvention.
I
It
didn't
really
even try the peel one. Yeah. So you have a book that's coming out, which is super exciting.
yeah.
Changemaker's Guide to Feeding the Planet: How to Solve Big Problems the Next Gen Way. And in
Mhm.
this book, you've outlined 6 next gen attitudes. Could you dig deeper into one of these for us? I'm sure it's hard to pick a favorite, but any one in particular that, and maybe you can
Yeah.
tell us briefly about all 6 that you'd love to share here in this.
Yeah, sure. So the first attitude is openness. That's the one that I think comes naturally to me, but it's basically how you can fuel your innovation by looking at inspiration from everywhere, actually, and not just in your discipline or your domain. It's connecting with people because it goes back to what we talked about at the beginning, right? About like how I was interested in everything, but that openness is actually tilling the soil. It creates fertile ground for like innovation to happen. There's a lot of like evidence for this, from various innovation experts, and Steve Jobs is like a quintessential example of, openness. But this is something that is a great next gen attitude and skill to cultivate.
I've heard a little bit about your idea of an overarching mindset called multispectral thinking and
Yeah.
how that will help solve some of the main challenges we see in the food system. Can you dig into that a little bit more for us?
Sure. Yeah. It's also in this book. And so that was a really challenging chapter to write, because this was really like something that like I created. And basically it took this field that was green, right? That like what you typically see, and like painted it the colors of the rainbow. And through the multispectral camera, you were able to see all kinds of things that the naked eye can't see. You were able to see richness and nuance and really opportunity, actually. And so I was like, I want that on my brain. I want to like approach every single issue with a multispectral sensor on my brain so that like we can move past polarized discussions, so that we can actually like enrich the opportunities that we see when we look at problems. And like that is multispectral thinking. And
That's so cool. It's like taking a step back and thinking about the way you think a little bit, like
exactly.
questioning
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Christine, thank you so much for joining us today.
Right.
This was
Yeah.
such a fun discussion. I hope everyone else listening in loved this as much as I did.